As dads, some days we feel like we have all the answers, and some days we feel like we don't have a clue. If that describes you, you're at the right place. This is the All Pro Dad Podcast. This is the All Pro Dad Podcast, and today I am joined by my friend Bobby Lewis.
Hey, man.
And Jason Hood.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Well, today, like we do every week, we take a look at just one question. We talk about what the experts say, especially on this episode.
Yes.
What we've gotten right, mostly what we've gotten wrong. Let's just keep that real. And we leave you with one powerful but simple pro move. So that's the goal of today. We've been talking a lot about technology and social media and how that's impacting our kids and just the world that they're living in. It was very different than the world that we lived in.
Yeah. A lot of new challenges.
Yeah. And so today we're asking a question that I'm like, oh, wow. You talking about lack of knowledge. I'm your guy.
Overwhelmed.
Okay. So what we did on this episode is, Bobby, I don't know if a lot of people know this, but you are Emmy award-winning journalist.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. Yeah. It's not something that I go around saying all the time.
But we remind them of it.
You do a lot. Yeah,
we
it's
do.
Like a daily thing.
And the tattoo on your wrist is kind of a telltale.
That's the giveaway.
That's okay. So we kind of did this episode in a way, I was like, Bobby, can you use your magical reporting skills to help us with this? So what's our question of the day?
Question of the day is, what are AI deepfakes and why should I care?
Good question.
And, because right now I don't a whole bunch.
Yeah. Well, I was going to ask you. This is a topic that is constantly changing, and AI and deepfake. AI in itself is constantly changing. But for you guys, I would like to know: can you define deepfake? Do you know what that is?
Until about 10 minutes ago, I could not. I know AI and what it does and kind of general knowledge of it and how it can be helpful, but it also can distort the truth. So, it's, to be honest, thinking about AI and the speed at which it's moving and developing is pretty terrifying, and because I don't know a lot about it. And so, I would assume a deepfake is just I don't know.
Well, here, let me give you a definition. And it's okay that you don't know, because a lot of dads probably feel the exact same way. They maybe heard the term, but don't really know. If you're going to define it, a good definition, I think, is deepfake's a video or a photo or audio recording that seems real, but has been manipulated using AI. And one of the reasons that I thought it would be very important for us to talk about this is because Mary Jo Wise is one of the writers here. She writes for iMom, she writes for All Pro Dad, does a lot of different stuff here. And she wrote an entire AI related series. And this was something she thought was fascinating. And she said, this is something parents need to know. She kept using the phrase over and over again. You need to have AI literacy. And that phrase stuck in my mind over and over again. And one of the things she said, you got to teach people about deep fakes. And so we're going to do a little photo exercise. I got my phone here. If you're watching on YouTube, we're going to actually put it on the screen. If you're just listening, Spotify, Apple, wherever, you can go to the show notes. We'll have this quiz down at the bottom. You can take an AI quiz to see if you can tell the difference between what's a deep fake photo and what's a real photo. But I want you to look at this picture and you guys tell me, we got two dogs, dog on the left, dog on the right. Which one is the AI manipulated image and which one is the actual photo of a real dog?
Well, I don't think that dog is from Paris.
They're both dogs. Yeah.
Yeah. Like it's all dressed up with a beret on.
Nor the backwards hat.
So one dog has a backwards hat. One has a beret. Yeah.
I'm going to say the one on the right is the AI generated photo. That dog's trying too hard to be cool.
Yeah, I'm going to go with that. His eyes look a little off to me.
Okay. You're both wrong. The dog on the right is real. The dog on the left with this beautiful blue beret is fake. That is an AI generated image.
Berets are always the telltale.
Yeah, beret is the sign. You're faking it. Yeah.
That golden retriever looked too perfect.
Yeah, too perfect. Well, that's the thing that's interesting. And we're going to get deep into this conversation, no pun intended, with the deepfakes, because right now AI and its generative abilities, it's kind of in its infancy. I mean, it's been around for a couple of years and people are getting pretty good at making up videos, making up images. If you couldn't tell now, what are the odds you're going to be able to tell 10 years from now when AI gets better and better and better? That's the thing that kind of concerns me.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen a couple of AI generated videos now, and it's pretty obvious, there's enough information out there now. You can kind of see what the differences are. But I mean, even in this photo, it's like, which dog is, you kind of balance who's trying the hardest?
Yeah.
Like, what, that picture looks really, really
that
perfect.
Dog's trying too hard.
Yeah. And you're like, okay, but then they're getting better and better.
Yeah.
And so I've seen voiceovers, I've seen all kinds of things. And like, how do you know how to attack this stuff, and how do you know how to address this stuff with your kids? Again, it plays into the what's real and what's not.
Mm-hmm. So Jason and I have teenagers and younger. You have young adults in your home. Have they brought this up? Is deepfakes a conversation for you guys?
No, but it's going to be. It's going to be.
Yeah. The thing that's creepy to me, and you mentioned you've heard audio recordings, Jason, is this has already been used in like super sinister ways.
Right.
And there were a couple of different times. There was an instance in Baltimore earlier this year where a teacher was fired, wasn't happy about it, and used AI to generate a really nasty racist comment from an administrator that had fired the teacher. And then they tried to use it to get that teacher fired. And they went to court and they had an audio specialist analyze it, and they were able to figure out, because it wasn't super sophisticated, that it was a fake. But had they not been able to figure it out, this person may have lost their job because of a vindictive AI action by the fired employee. That sort of stuff's very possible.
Very possible. Yeah.
Yeah. The thing that really scares me as a dad with these AI deepfakes is the example of what we've seen in schools around the country already, where usually young boys are taking pictures of their classmates and then superimposing, using AI, girls' pictures onto naked bodies and passing it around school. So it looks like a pornographic image. And there has been instances all over the country where this has happened in a handful of states. California, New Jersey, Washington, it's happened. No legal charges for the children. Wow. In Florida, 2 middle school boys got arrested and charged. But it's happening in a lot of different places. There's about 20 states around the country that have laws on the books about this now, but it's really difficult to tell because technically in the legal sphere, it's not a real image. So it's not real pornographic information. So you can't charge kids who are doing this against their classmates in many places. It's terrifying because, you know, let's say your daughter's walking down the hall at school, someone takes your picture. There's nothing she can do to prevent a classmate from taking an image and doing something really awful with it. And as a parent, that terrifies me, you know?
The technology is outpacing the law. And, and it is terrifying in the fact that there's nothing you can do about it.
Right. Well, and just, you know, I can understand now why Mary Jo comes to you and says, hey, we need to raise a red flag about this because, again, it's one more thing that we've got to be aware of with our kids. I mean, this is important.
Let me read you a quote because this broke my heart. This was a quote from a New Jersey high school student. She was not one of the victims at her school where a lot of kids in her class, 30 girls in her class were victims of this AI, you know, pornography type of thing. And this is what she said when she was interviewed. She said, I didn't know how complex and scary AI technology is. I was shocked because me and the other girls were betrayed by our classmates, which means it could happen to anyone by anyone. That's a peer.
Right.
Terrifying.
Yeah, that's devastating. That's devastating. One more thing for young girls, but even young guys to be insecure about. Like that's scary.
And that's part of the reason why we titled the episode what we titled it. Not just what are deepfakes, but what are deepfakes? And as a dad, why should I care? You should care because your kids are going to be dealing with this.
Right.
Well, Barna shows that 73% of parents are concerned about kids using AI, you know, probably for some of the reasons that you've talked about and other reasons. Have you guys had conversations with your kids about AI?
Briefly, I mean, my kids aren't into social media. We don't give them phones, and so the 13-year-old gets it through, you know, hanging out with their friends. We've talked about artificial intelligence from the standpoint of like, hey, there's a lot of, you know, fake stuff out there. You got to be careful of what you believe and what you consume. And, but as far as deep conversations, I don't know, other than the warning of like, hey, there's a lot of fake stuff out there. I don't know enough about it. And that's what's kind of terrifying for me. It's like the technology is moving so quickly and it's advancing so quickly and things are changing. It's hard to keep up unless you're just studying it constantly.
And I think there's a difference between fake fun and fake evil.
Right.
Like my kids, there's a guy at our church, super fun guy, loves to do the generative AI. And so they'll go up to him after church and be like, can you make a video or a picture of a mouse on a sailboat holding a balloon? Like, and they do these funny little videos and he puts it in the thing and 2 minutes later, here's 4 pictures and that's kind of fun. And they're like, this is so cute. This is hilarious. But my kids don't think the evil way. They think the good way, and they're just trying to have fun with it. But not every kid's going to think that way, and they're going to do something with it that's going to harm a lot of people.
Perfect example of what you just talked about kids are already doing it.
Yeah, it's bad. I mean, but it's something that dad should be aware of, because like you said, there's nothing you can really do about it yet. I mean, I'm sure there'll be laws that come up at some point that protect children. But at this point, not every state in the United States has laws that protect victims of this sort of stuff. And so you have to be aware, like, it could be your kid. So how are you going to have that conversation with your kid about deepfakes and what they mean and what they are? I mean, that's a really heavy thing for dads, I think.
Right. And you mentioned that Mary Jo, who's on staff at Family First, has done a lot of research about this, and you interviewed her on some points. So we're not throwing our hands up, guys, as you're listening, dads, as you're listening, going, hey, this is big. We don't know what to do with this. We've actually got someone on staff who's done a lot of work with this. So hopefully this will be helpful.
And down below in the show notes, no matter where you're watching this, we will have links to a lot of Mary Jo's research, and she's written 15 different AI and technology related articles that are available on allprodad.com. Deepfakes are just a few of them, but there's all sorts of stuff that she's researched, because AI is constantly changing, and it's been around a long time. We've used it in ways that people maybe don't even realize they're using it, but the new stuff, the generative stuff, the things that you can create out of thin air, that's, I think, what dads are most concerned about, at least the dads that I've talked to.
Sure.
And so we would encourage you to go read a lot of this stuff in addition to listening to this podcast, because there's so much good information that Mary Jo has compiled for that.
So we've talked a lot about the things to be really afraid of, and it's valid. But as you mentioned earlier, you did an interview, Bobby, with Mary Jo, who's on our staff, who's done so much research on this. And so we're going to walk through these points. Number one is stay informed about AI generated capabilities.
Yeah. Don't put your head under a rock, essentially was the advice that I was given. If you just want to wish it away, that's a stupid strategy. Like, you need to be aware of all the things that are going on, because your kids don't have the luxury of pretending it doesn't exist.
Right.
You have to be aware of all the things that are constantly changing. Only 17% or so of dads, or parents, not just dads, only 17% or so told Barna in a study that they're actively seeking out information about deepfakes and AI. That's a very small percentage. It's not high enough. If you want to protect your kids, you have to know the dangers that are out there.
Yeah, especially if you're kind of where we are in the middle school age, about to go into high school. They're going to be outside of our realm of being able to control everything that they do, right? And they're going to get introduced to it. People are going to, like, you can't live under a rock and protect and put them in a bubble.
Right. Yeah. If you went to the beach and assumed there were no sharks, that would be stupid.
Right.
You need to be aware that sharks are there, and then protect your kids as much as possible when you're out at the beach.
Right. So stay informed, which is what they're doing right now. So thumbs up for you guys. Number two, educate your kids about Gen AI with your values in mind.
Yeah. Questions like, hey, have you ever heard of this? What do you think about this? Have your friends used this? I think those are great questions to ask your kids.
That's a great point. Number three is establish clear tech rules before letting your child use a chatbot.
Yeah, I kind of think about if my daughter or my son was at one of these schools where some of the AI deepfake stuff was going on, and they came home and they said, Dad, can you believe what happened today? My first question would be, how would you feel if it was you? And see what they say. I'd be very curious to know, because they'd be very connected, be very close to their classmates who were just victimized in this way using deepfake technology. How would you feel if it was you? And that will help guide the conversation about the clear boundaries that you want to set. And I think we should all keep that golden rule in mind, that treat others the way you want to be treated. Not everyone's going to follow that rule, but in my house, that's going to be the rule. How do you want to be treated? And that extends to everything in life, including the way that we use AI.
Right.
That's a great one. Number four, try out an AI image creator together before handing over the tool.
Have you guys used a lot of the chatbots like Copilot or ChatGPT and those sort of things?
Yes.
And you've noticed that when you get super specific, it gives you much better results.
Yeah, that's true.
I would imagine the same thing works with the generative images and whatnot. Like if you're super broad and you say, show me a beautiful woman or something like that, it would give you a very broad thing. But if you say, show me someone who is doing A, B, C, D, like it'll give you a specific result. Right. Same thing goes here. Like if you were trying to give kids access to using this and you don't teach them that they have to be specific in what they're asking, they might get something that you didn't want them to see.
That's a great
we got to be specific and try it out with them. And that way it'll also demonstrate to them that like this in itself is not necessarily evil. This is just a tool. We're just using it. But if you use it the right way, you're more likely to have a safer experience.
Yeah. I'm imagining a dad sitting out there right now, like, are you crazy? Like,
Sure.
So is he like, are you going to introduce this tool to my kids? And so I'm kind of conflicted about that one personally. So I got to think about that a little bit more, because I understand what you're saying. It kind of goes back to the first point of don't put your head under a rock. Mm-hmm. Don't allow your kids to put their head under a rock either. And so I can see what you're saying. And at the same time, I'm like, it's just kind of a scary thing to do.
Right. Well, and I think you're right. And maybe the asterisk here is age appropriate time. When it's time when you're there. I think you're exactly right. That's a good point, Jason.
And you said the word introduce. I don't think we're the ones that are going to introduce them to this.
Yeah, that's true.
I think their peers at school or in the neighborhood are going to introduce them. If they haven't already done it.
Right.
And so whether they know about it right now or not, you can kind of gauge that. Maybe you can ask some of these questions that we've talked about before. And if they've already heard about it, now we're going to sit and do it together. Right. And if they haven't, maybe it's not the time to do it yet.
Yeah.
That's good. And the final point that she makes is take steps to protect your kids from predators who use AI tech. That's so scary.
Yeah.
So important.
Yeah. I do think that any kind of guardrail I can put up in my kid's life, I'm going to try to do it, and not to bubble wrap them and keep them safe from experiencing the world, but to let them experience the road with as much safety as possible. Yeah. I've never met someone who has been upset that there was a guardrail on like the winding road. Like, oh man, who put that there? They ruined my fun. Like, no, that's actually there for your good. So if we can actually create these guardrails and let them experience the world that is all around them. They're not going to hide from this AI stuff. If they can experience it safely and we can be there to kind of make sure the guardrail doesn't fall, I think that's our best bet. So the bottom line we want to leave you with is that the AI is not going away. It's here and it's here to stay, and it's here for your great grandkids probably. So stay up to date on it. We're at the advent of it. We can help shape how this goes for our kids. Stay up to date on how it's being used and expect a lot of changes.
That's really good. And I think what you said, Bobby, is you've been prepping for this, and what we've heard from Mary Jo is we're not saying it's all gloom and doom. There is a lot of upside to AI. I know for me personally, as a speaker and a writer, I get a lot of use out of that. And probably our kids are all going to be using it, hopefully in a good way. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But
yeah, that was the most surprising thing about your interview with Mary Jo, is that she left her research excited about the possibilities of AI and what the future is going to be with it. After all her research, her overwhelming outlook of it was positive, and it's going to be a good thing for us.
That's good.
Yeah, one thing that was interesting, she's a former high school teacher, and she told me, like, I wish this was around when I was teaching, because she's not doing it in the classroom anymore. And she's like, this could have been such a cool tool. And yeah, we did talk a little bit about the negative things because we should be aware of those. Sure. But yeah, we don't want to leave you with the idea that it's all negative. There are some great things about it, and that's why I think we need to be proactive with our kids with it.
Will Smith's iRobot ruined us forever.
He did. Oh man, Sonny pounding the table. Yeah.
So Bobby, based on the fact that there's pros and cons, but speaking specifically to the deep fakes, what's our pro move of the episode?
Yeah. Ask your kid straight up, do you know what a deep fake is? If they're little, they might. If they're older, they may go, yeah, do you know, Dad? Ask your kids, do you know what deep fakes are? Talk to them about what your family feels is appropriate and inappropriate ways to use artificial intelligence. See what they say.
That's great. Bobby, thank you.
Yeah.
We appreciate that. And we appreciate you guys for listening. We know your kids will be glad you did. See you next time. Thanks for listening to the All Pro Dad podcast. All Pro Dad is the fatherhood program of the nonprofit Family First. Along with our motherhood program, iMom, we exist to help you love your family well. Subscribe to our daily email, the All Pro Dad Play of the Day, by going to allprodad.com/subscribe and get daily powerful and practical fatherhood tips in your inbox. The All Pro Dad podcast is hosted by me, Ted Lowe, produced by Bobby Lewis.